There is a Baylor program that needs to be doing better. I'm not talking just about this year and last year, but so much more than that. I'll tell you which one it is on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another episode of Locked On Baylor and a very happy Memorial Day to you. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Rogue Media Sports Network. Hope you all had a great long weekend or still enjoying it. And of course, paying the necessary tribute today on Memorial Day. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day, holiday or not. I really appreciate that, and I don't thank you guys enough for that. You guys have been terrific in my time here as the Locked On Baylor host. As we're kind of rounding out all the sports here for the year, so I just wanted to make sure I thank you guys as much as possible. But it was a bitter end to the softball season yesterday, but there's so much to be proud about for this team. I'm also going to highlight a program in Baylor athletics that I think it is just needs to be better. And I'm not talking about a team, this year's team. I'm talking about as a whole, how have we got to this point? And of course, there was a quarterback commitment over the weekend as well. We would love to highlight that, although you might know which one it's coming in with. First off, a huge congratulations to the Baylor softball team for the season that they had. The season comes up just short of what would have been probably the ultimate goal. On Sunday afternoon, they lose game 3 in Gainesville, 5-3, and it's the Florida Gators who go off to the Women's College World Series. The Bears, though, terrific season. They get their first super regional berth in 7 years, and how this team started, man, it was a pretty great accomplishment to get there. And we talk about the fight all year. You saw it this weekend again. You know, the Bears come out, they throw the first punch on Friday night, and then Florida blitzes them right back, takes a lead. Baylor tacks on a couple to get within a run or two, and they drop game 1. They come back and end Florida's huge winning streak in game 2. On their home diamond, man, they shut it down. Like, they played a near flawless game in that game 2. And then game 3, it starts out like a nightmare. Again, talking about Florida blitzing a team. It was 4-0 after 2 innings of that game yesterday. But these Bears, they just keep fighting back. They get it to 4-3. Florida adds an insurance run. It's 5-3 in the 7th. The Bears get the first 2 runners on. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name. Whoever the color commentator was saying, like, the door is open for Baylor again, and the door has been open all day. Like, they kept creating enough and making enough plays defensively and keeping runners stranded for Florida that they were in this game all the way up till the end. And a really unfortunate bunt attempt that gets popped up right on the infield for an easy first out. And then Shaylin Govan, man, takes it right to the warning track. Line shot to the warning track, which would have been a go-ahead 3-run homer, not to be. And it does stink that Aaliyah Binford is the last out because she was tremendous in this game. Tremendous. Riley Crandall does not have a great start. I mean, she has been the workhorse for the Bears the last couple of weeks. So you could be okay, thinking that fatigue might have caught up a little bit there. She's given it her all. And Aaliyah Binford comes in and is just fantastic. Gives up just the 1 run in the last, whatever it was, 4 or 5 innings, I think 4 1/3 innings or whatever it was. She came in the second. She was terrific in this game. And it felt like the end of Coach Carter. That's what it felt like. Like you just wanted to give them all a hug because, there's no moral victories at this level of college athletics. And thankfully for us at Baylor, the renaissance that the athletic department has had the last 10 to 15 years, we don't take a lot of moral victories anymore, but this is a season worth celebrating. We started 1-8. Was that it? 1-8 in the conference and end up at the super regionals and take a team that has been as hot as anyone in college softball the last month and a half and took them to the wire on their home diamond, like right down to the last out. Credit to what was her name? Kaylee Rothrock. Am I getting that right? Weird last name. She was outstanding. She appeared in, I think, all 3 games, threw 130 pitches in this game yesterday. So credit to Florida. I mean, I said it before this super regional. Like, you talk about how tough Baylor has been and has fought back in this season. Florida, it was on a similar tear coming into this. Now they were overall kind of better throughout the season, but a month and a half ago, or just over a month ago, they were on the precipice of dropping out of the top 20 and not being able to host in the regionals. And they go on this insane run. They blew everyone out of the water in their regionals. It was 24-2 in the regional last weekend. And they end up going, what, +1 in this 3-game set? Like, these were all nail biters. And I knew you're probably getting annoyed at how much I say this, but like, this team, the way they picked themselves up, this Baylor team, man, it was really something special. Something special. And Glenn Moore came on the Matt Mosley show last week and talked about this senior class. You heard the broadcasters raving about them in yesterday's game. You know, it's not going to go down as the most decorated class in Baylor softball history. They didn't make the Women's College World Series, but this, I think, is going to hold a very special place, because they got dealt a tough card this year with the Mackenzie Wilson situation and the injuries they had to endure, because this was a team talent-wise that could well have been in Oklahoma City at the beginning of the season. And they got dealt a tough hand. And I think they've got a lot of talent returning next year, even though this is such a solid senior class. So we could be looking back at this, if this team's in Oklahoma City next year, the year after, as like, this was a necessary evil. This was a necessary lesson. We didn't like it at the time because they got so close, but it did help a lot. And these seniors who led the way, and Glenn Moore talked about like how little he had to coach this team because the seniors were such good motivators, and always knew the task at hand. And I think we're going to be saying the same thing about the women's basketball team as well, by the way, because that's what it made me think of this whole time. With high expectations coming into the season, dealt with a couple different things. Obviously, the softball situation was a bit more concrete than the problems they hit in the women's basketball season, but they both make it to the Sweet 16. They were so close to advancing even farther and shutting a lot of people up. And it looks like a great foundation for the future. So women's sports at Baylor, man, it might not have gone anywhere really, but it is coming back big time, both on the hardwood and on the softball diamond. So congratulations again, man. Again, no moral victories, but that was a fantastic run. And I think there was just nothing to hang your heads about. That was a fantastic season, an exciting playoff run, and I think they're going to come back even stronger next year. I really do. I really do, especially without UT and Oklahoma in the conference. This thing is open, and this Baylor team, as it's constructed right now, could well be challenging for that conference title next year. They will have passion, drive, and patience. Those 3 things that bring home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber. You're not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. That Guaranteed Fit only available to our U.S. customers. And again, that is ebaymotors.com. Okay, so the mystery program, which I have teased a couple of times here, it made me think of this because this upcoming week, I think it's actually at the end of the week, is the 19th anniversary of the last time the Baylor Bears went to the College World Series. On the men's side, I'm talking baseball. Like Willie Mickey and the Duke. I am talking baseball. And I look back at this because I've been talking about it a couple of times throughout the last week or two, and I've thought about Baylor baseball a lot for some reason, and how I feel like they're putting together the building blocks. But I keep saying, look, don't expect them to go to Omaha or anything next year. And it made me think, man, when can we expect Omaha? It's going to be at least 20 years between Omaha trips. 20 years. I get that it's tough. And I get that it's even tougher for a smaller private school in today's day and age. Although we're going to see, TCU has gone there a couple of times. We're probably going to see Wake Forest give it a right shot again for the second year in a row. Oral Roberts went there last year. Maybe not Omaha as much, but we know the program that Dallas Baptist has up the road. It's not like a perfect end-all be-all excuse. It's not. But it just made me think, like, 20 years. Baylor's had some damn good teams since then. Obviously, 2012, the Feed the Otter, that was the team. That was the Big 12 Conference champs, got all the way up to, I think, number 2 in the rankings that year. Am I right? Did they get to number 1? I don't know, 25-game winning streak, like, outstanding. That was the last time they even made the Supers. That was 12 years ago. And when I was in college, they had some damn good teams, tournament champions in 2018. And then the roster going into 2019 had Omaha written all over it. Now, they did have some injuries, but they also only fell a half game out of first place for the regular season title. So it wasn't that great an excuse. They had the best offense in the Big 12, one of the best offenses in the country. A couple of guys who are in the major freaking leagues right now, and they couldn't make the Supers. And I'm just like, what has happened to this program? Like, you can, I'm not saying, oh my gosh, this is rock bottom last 2 years. Last 2 years have not been good, but it's understandable with a coaching change in today's college baseball. We are really seeing, it's one of the first major programs that had to go through a coaching change like that in the era of the transfer portal. And we are seeing the potentially long-lasting effects of it. But man, I mean, this used to be baseball at times was Baylor's only good, like, relevant team sport. Before Kim Mulkey got here for women's basketball, men's basketball was on life support. Football was always a doormat, but there was baseball. Couple of College World Series trips, a lot of tournament appearances, and always in the mix. Always in the mix. In what was a good baseball conference from the Southwest Conference through the Big 12. I mean, you're talking about UT, the most College World Series appearances of anybody. Arkansas, obviously the tradition that they have. Rice, a terrific player in the Southwest Conference. It was before TCU got great, but you had some teams at the top, and Baylor was always in that mix. Always. Obviously, Steve Smith had a great run now coaching the McGregor High School Bulldogs down the street. So what gives me hope is that the guy who was in the dugout in 05, the last time they went to Omaha, and for a couple of Omaha trips, is now the head coach. But it feels like nothing has quite gone right for the program really in the 20 years. And what I mean by that is, like, 2012, they have the best Baylor baseball team probably ever assembled, if we're being honest. Like, they didn't make Omaha, so that's a weird thing to say, but that was such a good team. And, they have the heartbreak at home in the super regionals. And Steve Rodriguez, I thought, was a great hire. And it showed up with the talent that he was able to bring here to Waco. We're talking first round picks, top 10 pick, and Shea Langoliers. And they couldn't get it done in the postseason. And it just felt like almost a curse, man. I mean, I look back at the 17 regional, which was down in College College Station or Houston. One of them was the host, but they're pretty close by. And they go to a game 2 elimination game, and Rod puts out Alex Phillips, who hadn't pitched more than like 4 or 5 innings in a start all year because he was a year removed from Tommy John. He was the midweek starter instead of pitching a freshman, Cody Bradford, who, obviously that's a big moment for a freshman, but he ends up being the Big 12 pitcher of the year the next year. I think he probably could have handled it. And it's just like moves like that. And they, in 2019, I was out there in LA. They like set all kinds of records. They won 24-6 in an elimination game. Shea Langoliers had the record for RBI in a game, which was later tied by in a postseason game, which was later tied by a former Baylor Bear, Trey Richardson. Won't mention who he set that record for. And so you're like, everything's on your side, and then they lose the next day. And it stinks. And then, by the way, that UCLA team, which was number 1 in the country, lost in the Super Regional in that same ballpark. So it was like everything that kind of that can go wrong at the last hurdle for Baylor the last 20 years has gone wrong. And even the times when it hasn't, they just haven't gotten to the last hurdle. And it stinks, man, because we're hearing it from all angles of these Big 12 teams. Even when TCU has a bad year in baseball, it wasn't as bad as Baylor. You finally got them to stink one year, and it wasn't as bad as Baylor. Same thing with Tech, and it's just like and I didn't watch a single pitch of the Big 12 baseball tournament this week. Or last week, I guess now. I got alerted that Oklahoma State won it. I saw that on Twitter, but I couldn't have even told you who the top seed was. I think OU had a really strong finish to the year. And it stinks because I used to be so into college baseball, and Baylor baseball when I was in college was such a fun, kind of, I don't know what to call it, escape, I guess, because there was so much heartbreak in football and basketball, but baseball had really solid teams, and proved a lot of people wrong in those 3 years of tournaments from 17 to 19. And now I'm like completely checked out. I don't know. I don't know any of the players for the other teams. I don't know who's good. I got nothing. And Baylor baseball showed me some things this year. Trust me, they roped a lot of us in for a little bit when they were 9-7 in the Big 12, but then they finished 10-20 in the Big 12. So it was very evident that there are plenty of steps left before this team can think about NCAA tournament baseball. Not that that's out of the realm of possibility for next year, because I think that's a place you got to aim. But from a team that was 5th in the conference a month ago, it stinks that we're sitting here Memorial Day and saying, man, Big 12 tournament got to be in there next year because we should have been in there this year, but I can't be the same guy who just railroads them and be the same guy who says, it's a long rebuild, because it is. It's a long rebuild. But I'm not just talking about this Mitch Thompson era. I am talking about the other 17 years before that. And it like the signs were there really at the end of the Rodriguez run when they didn't make the tournament in 21. The writing was on the wall, 21 or 22 and 22, but specifically 21, when I think they were like the first team out. It was like, man, that team had too much talent to not be in the NCAA tournament. And here we are 3 years later saying they've got to make a push. They've got to at least make it to the Big 12 tournament next year. They just got to, and could potentially, if a lot of things go right, push for an NCAA tournament spot. But that is a long way off, and it will have been 20 years by the time they're competing for that again, since they last made it to Omaha, which just stinks. All right, on some happier things for the future. We did get a commitment. Woo! Baylor football on Friday, end of the week last week. Edward Griffin, who we talked about taking the visit to the facility on Thursday. By Friday, he puts out the tweet. He is committed. He's going to be a Baylor Bear. The Coppell Cowboy who led them to the district title this year, 12-1. He was the district player of the year, by the way, and I think that's 6-6A up in Coppell. I could be wrong there. A tremendous season, one that they haven't had there in a while, and he was a huge reason why. Obviously, the district MVP, 41 touchdowns, 3 picks, completed 74% of his passes. That's a real sturdy stat line against a real sturdy level of competition. So, see a 3-star. Yes. Before I have you in the comments saying, why are you hyping up another 3-star? Yes. But I mean, you look at those numbers against that competition, and to me, that's not all 3-stars are created equal. And this is on the high end of being a 3-star. I am intrigued by the fact that after they lost Adam Schobel, they took a couple of weeks before they sent out any other offers. And Griffin was the first offer from Jake Spavital after that. Like, you just look at the timeline. That's correct. He offered him, I think it was May 10th. And less than 2 weeks later, Griffin is signed on and is a Baylor Bear. And is putting that out on Twitter. And look, he could well be a guest on the Locked On Baylor podcast this week. He just could be. It could be. There have been talks. And we love a quarterback with the last name Griffin. I can't say that enough. I'll probably say that to him, get a big chuckle if he's going to be on the show this week anyway. But it's nice to see that they didn't wait around too much for the class of 25. Because again, that's been the problem with Baylor the last couple of years is kind of putting their eggs into one basket and it not paying off and being late in the game. They could well have done that with the Schobel situation. Like, that was my biggest fear. Not that they weren't going to get anybody in, because they were going to get somebody in the whole time. But if they had waited throughout the summer and these guys are entering in their senior year, the crop is just a lot different from really around this time, late May, and then specifically before June, when these guys start going to camps and some official visit days. That's when you see a lot of them get snatched up. And even the guys who are committed now, not necessarily Baylor guys, but there will be some that flip their commitments here in the next month. So to get a guy committed before them is, I think, big. But we'll just have to see, because again, I don't know how much they'll go in the transfer route. Speaking of that, you got 2 transfer quarterbacks right now. I thought about this during the weekend. Like, what would it take for DeQuan Finn to not be the starter? What would you have to see from Sawyer Robertson to not be the starter? And when are we going to find out who the starter is going to be? What's the first game? August 31st. We might find out August 30th. We might find out August 31st. Who knows? I will say, though, and we will do an episode on this at some point and really break these things down. Baylor, under Dave Aranda, the way they are right now, cannot afford to not know who their quarterback is come week 1. Because there are teams that will try out a couple, and we saw this actually with Matt Rule twice, where he brought in a more experienced quarterback and said, okay, this guy's going to start week 1. It happened back-to-back years, and both times Charlie Brewer took over before week 3. So Baylor in this current construction is just not in a position, and the head coach does not have the job security to be able to do that. They need to ride with their guy, which worked out at times with Blake Shapen, but I think if some of these guys had to do it over again, they probably would have gone with Gary Bohannon instead. Look, that we'll never know. But they need to have a guy that they are solidly behind as we go into that first game against Tarleton. Let me know who you think that should be. Drop that down in the comments below, or what you think about the softball team and this great run they had, and what baseball needs to do. What are some reasonable expectations for baseball next year? Or even if you just want to say, hey, that'd be great. Or thank a veteran. Do that in the comments down there below. Or just say hi or anything. It helps the algorithm, and it helps me get some more money, which I really like, to be totally honest with you guys. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. Be sure to like and subscribe here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We're dropping fresh new content 5 days a week. We're going to be moving to 3 days a week soon, but that won't make the content change. We are bringing you nothing but Baylor Bears athletics. We're the only place that is doing that that's not straight from the university, and we're really proud of that. So thanks again for making it your first listen today and every day. We're going to have a little crossover episode tomorrow on Locked On Baylor.